As I've continued reading the story of Samuel, and I've got to the place in the story where Saul has messed up big time, and God is bringing into force his plans for a new king, for David, the shepherd boy, to become king. And there was a verse at the beginning of 1 Samuel 16 that hit me a bit like a thunderbolt, and I think because of its relevance to where we are today. And what it says is this: "You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as king of Israel. So fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem." And it was that first sentence, "You have mourned long enough for Saul." And it's not that God is saying that that is a wrong thing. It's not that God is saying that Saul isn't worthy of the grief that Samuel feels on his behalf, but that it's time to move on. And Saul has finished as king. He hasn't died. He hasn't come to the end of his reign. But Samuel needs to refocus. Samuel is sent to Bethlehem, where he is to anoint one of the sons of Jesse. And that's a story that we're quite familiar with, how God speaks to Samuel as the sons are presented before him. And we're told that famous verse that God doesn't look at outward appearances, but looks at the heart. And he chooses David, the young shepherd boy. For Samuel to go and do this is risky, and Samuel's response, it's obedience to God straight away. He goes straight away, but he knows it's risky, that he could be in danger from Saul if he finds out. And what's reassuring is that God has already thought about that, and he's gone ahead and he plans it. I think the reason it struck me so hard was because that's probably where I feel I am. And that God is saying, you need to let go. And some of the things that I'm holding on to are simply that they have become habits over the last 15 months. We've had 15 months of being under lock and key, if you like. We've been restrained, we've been controlled, we've had lockdowns, we've had restrictions. But with those things come new habits. We've got out of the habit of meeting together. We've got out of the habit of doing things together. We've become very insular. Getting out of this feels risky. It feels unknown territory because new habits have been formed. But I just felt it was like God was saying, it's enough. You need to let go. Not that the things in themselves are bad, but it's just time to move on. And reassuring in this chapter is that God does prepare. He knows it's risky. He knows it's uncertain, but God goes ahead. And the other lovely thing about this is what it tells us about David. Further on in the chapter, we are told this about David. One of Jesse's sons from Bethlehem is a talented harp player. Not only that, he is a brave warrior, a man of war, and has good judgment. He is also a fine-looking young man, and the Lord is with him. And this was spoken by one of Saul's servants, who was recommending David to Saul's service. This is the reputation that David had from when he was a shepherd. These are character traits, these are abilities, these are skills that have been developed in complete anonymity. And I think that's quite exciting because a lot of what people have been doing during lockdown and during these last 15 months is to develop new skills. Perhaps things that they never thought they would do, things they never dreamt of trying to attempt, but people have developed new skills and qualities have emerged that weren't evident before. And I think that's quite exciting, that as we step into the next stage, there are lots of people who have actually very quietly just been getting on with it, but have developed new skills and new abilities at the same time. And so this chapter gave me both a little nudge to leave behind the things that are holding me back. Be brave, be bold, get out there, to trust God because He's gone before, but also to be on the lookout for what God has already done, for what He has already planted in people, because we're moving into a different world. Like it or not, things have changed. People have changed fundamentally sometimes. And I think we can't assume that it's all going to be as it was before. People are different. We've all been challenged and changed in some way, big or small, by what's been happening to us. And so it was an encouragement to see, to look for what God has been doing in people's lives. So perhaps you too would like to take this challenge to leave behind your mourning, to leave behind the things that are holding you, and to step forward trusting God. But also want to look in yourself. What has God been doing in your life in the last 15 months? What skills have you acquired? What new challenges have you faced? Have you risen to the challenge and achieved? What can you lay before the King and say, this is what I can do now. Can you use this? And I think we're stepping into very exciting new times. Perhaps you'd like to rise to the challenge with me and leave behind what's holding you and step into a new future with God Almighty.